With the BYU Cougars set to open up Big 12 conference play on Saturday night, I figured now was a great time to talk about the players I believe are absolutely imperative to any and all hopes BYU has of improving on a 2-7 conference record a season ago. And no, it's not just Jake Retzlaff.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, your resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first view or listen of the day, and appreciate all of you we like to call everydayers right here on your original daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, that's the end of this week, my friends. FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. All right, let's dive right in on today's show. As I mentioned in the open, Jake Retzlaff is absolutely critical to any and all success BYU hopes to have this season overall. He's already led BYU to a 3-0 record, but he can't do it himself. And trust me, the reaction from yesterday's podcast has been all over the place. The bigger point I wanted to make on today's show is that besides Jake Retzlaff, we're going to essentially put him to the side because his success in large part will coincide with whatever success BYU has in Big 12 play this fall. I wanted to talk about 6 other players I believe are absolutely critical to BYU's hopes of what was a 2-7 record a season ago, improving to at least 3-6, if not better than that this fall. Now, the 3 offensive players and the 3 defensive players, I think some of them are household names. A couple of them may be a little bit off the radar, but let's start off offensively. Number 1 on the offensive in terms of the most critical players I feel like need to step up. It's got to be Caleb Etienne. Now, Caleb Etienne has proven to be a very, very capable left tackle through the first 3 games this season. It's actually been a remarkable turnaround for this young man. Remember, he was just absolutely lost out there for large stretches of last season. TJ Woods came in, has really trained him up. I know that guys like Connor Pay have also taken him under their wing, and he has absolutely transformed into a very, very good left tackle. This coming Big 12 season is going to make or break his hopes to make it 4 straight left tackles from BYU being drafted in the NFL draft. The early returns on Caleb and what he's doing at left tackle are absolutely awesome, but now it's going to get real. You're going to be facing the best athletes probably on your schedule. I know that SMU had a very good defensive line, but it's going to be more important, it feels like, in Big 12 play to show you can hold up game in and game out on that edge, and also protect Jake Retzlaff's backside. We know that Jake has had a penchant for turning the ball over, especially when it comes to fumbling the football. Do not allow guys, speaking of Caleb Etienne, to come around the blind side and obliterate a guy like Jake and help turn that ball over, those strip sacks. Those will absolutely cripple any and all things BYU hopes to do. The other thing about Caleb, he's got to prove he can run block effectively as well. And this is going to be a very, very stiff test. Number 2 offensively, LJ Martin. How quickly can he get back on the field for BYU? Because, frankly, they need him. Is it this week? Is it 3 weeks from now? Is it the rest of the season? Nobody really knows at this point. I asked Kalani Sitake point blank yesterday about the health status of his running backs. He said, we're still evaluating some things, and as usual, was very evasive with his answers. He said, we're still evaluating some things. Can't rule them out for this week, but at this juncture, I don't have any faith that any one of LJ Martin, Hinkley Rapati, and or Enoch Nawahine, who we learned after the Wyoming game is also beat up, of them playing this week. Now, getting any one of those guys back would help BYU's chances, but the guy I am most concerned with is LJ Martin. There is nobody on this roster like him. I think the second best running back on the roster right now is Pokai Haunga, and it's nothing against Miles Davis. It's nothing against the other guys that have been playing running back for BYU, but Pokai Haunga, what he showed in those 5 reps or so, 5 carries he got against Wyoming, showed me everything I need to know that he should be, in my mind, the starting running back this week against Kansas State if LJ Martin can't go. The longer BYU is without LJ Martin, it means it's going to be absolutely more difficult for BYU's offense to thrive. So the sooner LJ can get back on the field, the better, because they absolutely need him on the field. Number 3 on the offense, players I believe need to stand out for BYU. Keanu Hill. Now, Keanu Hill had a bit of a coming out party last week against Wyoming. Can he do it against better competition? It's easy to go out there and run routes against air. It felt like at times against Wyoming when that defense is lost, but there are much better defenses coming, and BYU's already faced much better defenses, and he was pretty invisible at points during those games. Kibo is a fantastic wide receiver. We all saw it, that two-point conversion he hauled in against SMU. We saw him waltz into the end zone on an incredible wide delay route against Wyoming last week. He obviously got knocked out of that game after taking a headshot on a targeting call, but all reports are that he was at least had cleared concussion protocol in the immediate aftermath of that game. Now, post-concussion symptoms can manifest themselves days later, so obviously he will be under observation to make sure that he doesn't have any ill effects. But I think that Keanu, his ability to really attack the field from his tight end position that he's playing now is going to open up a lot of what BYU hopes to do. He's got wide receiver skills and a tight end body. If he can accomplish what he needs to accomplish at tight end, BYU's success offensively is going to be very much in line with what he can accomplish as well. Now, that doesn't absolve any of the wide receivers as well as the other running backs on the depth chart that are pass catchers from doing their part, because they're absolutely critical to the success that BYU hopes to have this fall. But I think that Keanu is a big, big part of this. Flipping over to the defense, Tyler Batty. Tyler Batty was a first-team preseason all-conference honoree. Can he live up to the billing? If he can live up to that billing and become that type of player where come postseason, he once again is an all-conference honoree from the Big 12 Conference, that means he put together a pretty stellar run through Big 12 Conference play and earned the respect of his peers and, more importantly, the coaches and media around the league. Tyler has got all the tools, 6'5", 270 some odd pounds, chiseled like a Greek god, it feels like out there, and has shown very, very adept pass rushing skills. Can he go out there and once again become the dominant force on the edge that BYU needs to really continue to bring the pressure? Now, he doesn't have to do it by himself. Obviously, we've seen guys like Jack Kelly, Isaiah Glasker, Logan Latui, Isaiah Banya, even guys from on the interior, Blake Mangelson, John Nelson among them. They have been able to get pressure on opposing quarterbacks, but I really do feel like number 92, he's a team captain, Tyler Batty's got to step up and become the guy BYU has always hoped he would become and become a consistent force on the edge for the BYU football program. Number 2 on the defense, Jakob Robinson. Similar to what Tyler Batty has meant for BYU during his career, Jakob Robinson, I feel like could have a similar type impact, albeit in the secondary for BYU this season. He's been absolutely lights out so far through 3 games. I believe that Jakob Robinson has got the capability of being an all-conference performer, but can he live up to it similar to Tyler Batty? What he did against Wyoming was nothing short of remarkable. I know it doesn't show up a lot in the stat sheet with a lot of the plays he made, but the one thing about Jakob Robinson is he's got the capability of playing at that outside corner spot, also can slot inside to the nickel, and he essentially will mirror the opposing team's best wide receiver or wide receivers if they're in a platoon role, and he's going to have his work cut out for them. These are very, very good athletes, tall, rangy, long athletes that he's going to have to combat as a guy who, frankly, is a little bit undersized at his position. But the one thing I've always loved about Jakob Robinson is he plays bigger than his frame. He's listed, I think, at 6 foot, 180, I would guess. He plays more like a guy who is 6'2", 200 pounds. And I love that about him. Can he reprise that role in Big 12 play? If he does, that's going to give BYU at least one lockdown corner who can make sure that the opposing team has to look elsewhere when it comes to their passing options in game. The final guy I'm looking at, and it's a guy that, I'm absolutely astounded at what he has done because I thought there were many other bodies that were pushing to take his spot away from him. Harrison Taggart. I know that Jack Kelly, I know that Isaiah Glasker alongside him at the starting 2 linebacker spots on the outside have stolen a lot of the headlines, but Mr. Consistent in the middle of this defense has been Harrison Taggart. It's absolutely remarkable. I was a guy who was riding on the CLA Acera train of taking that middle linebacker job. Ace Kafusi made a run at it as well, but all Harrison Taggart did was fend off all comers. This is a guy, when he came to BYU via transfer from Oregon, was undersized but showed elite speed. The nice part is that speed is still there. Now he's bulked up. He is playing the role of middle linebacker better than I would have ever anticipated so far through 3 games this fall. He has been a rock in the middle of that defense, and so long as he continues to do what he has done and can do it against the likes of Kansas State, Arizona, Oklahoma State, on down the list, BYU's defense is going to be that much better, having a guy that is essentially stepping into that role that Ben Bywater left a gaping hole at and has filled it quite admirably. So those are the 6 players that I'm looking at as I think the most critical ones in BYU's chances of improving on a 2-7 record a season ago. Now, I'll remind you, with a 3-0 record, BYU goes 3-6. They'll be 6-6 on the year and be bowl eligible. 4-5, that's a 7-5 record. You can do the math. I trust that you guys can do that, but it's a very, very important stretch of games upcoming for BYU, and it starts off with an absolute barn burner against the Kansas State Wildcats Saturday night, and I, for one, cannot wait to be out at Lavelle Edwards Stadium watching that all go down. I welcome your feedback. Are those 6 players I just mentioned, are they the players that you would have picked? Probably not, but those are the 6 I'm picking. What players do you think will have a critical role to play for BYU's success in Big 12 play? Drop them in the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, send us a note via email or drop us a line on social media and let us know where we're wrong, where maybe we're right, or where you think we should be going in that conversation. All right, coming up here in just a minute, we're going to flip over and talk about a guy that has emerged on the scene immediately and has become BYU's top NFL draft prospect in the upcoming NFL draft cycle. Who is it? Well, shouldn't be all that surprising, but we'll talk about it next, right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends, a new friend over at Roy. Now, what is Roy? You're probably like, okay, Jake, that's a name. It's Roy. It's Roy High School. The best part about Roy is it stands for Return on You, and it's a new platform that lets you, the fans, get involved in NIL like never before by making contributions directly to your favorite athletes. By supporting players directly, you can help shape rosters, retain talent, and keep your favorite athletes out of the transfer portal and keep them, in this case, at BYU. As you all know, NIL has changed the game for athletes. Roy changes the NIL game for fans. The best part is you can directly support your players that you happen to love. You can contribute funds to an account that they will be able to maximize with their name, image, and likeness potential via our friends at Roy. They also have no-risk contributions. Your donations are securely held and are only distributed if the athlete makes a decision that aligns with the fan support and works with Roy. If not, the money is returned to you, the fan. Think about that. It's an incredible offer, my friends. So download Roy. It's ROY for iOS or Android, and enter the referral code Locked On and be automatically entered to win a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. $5,000 large from our friends. Visit joinroy.com for additional details. No purchase necessary, and of course, void where prohibited. Get the Roy app for iOS or Android and start making an impact on your favorite team, in this case, the BYU Cougars. Use that referral code Locked On for an opportunity to win $5,000 in cash. Visit joinroy.com for more details. Once again, no purchase necessary and void where prohibited. Get off the sidelines and get into the NIL game and do it with our friends at Roy. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. If you have not done so already, please check out the Locked On College Football podcast. If you venture over there today, you may see a familiar face. Yours truly had a chance to sit down with my good friend Spencer McLaughlin to talk about BYU football, preview the Kansas State game, and get a couple other thoughts out there on the BYU football program. It's Locked On College Football, available wherever you get your podcasts, also available on YouTube. And of course, it is proud to be part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where of course it is your team every day. All right. Mel Kiper obviously is the godfather of NFL draft prep, and it just has been an absolute stalwart in that field for literally, I think, 4 decades at this point. He comes out annually with routinely throughout the year with his big boards, and he obviously lays out what he thinks his top 25 prospects are in the NFL draft, and they kind of shift and mold as the seasons progress. But the bigger thing is he also lists what he calls his top 10 players at any given position. Well, a little to my surprise as I was reading this, because I don't miss anything that he writes, because I've been a Mel Kiper disciple for decades at this point in my life. I've been reading him since I was a young child when he was doing his thing in the 90s with ESPN. But as I was reading about his top 10 prospects at outside linebacker, this little name popped up. Jack Kelly from BYU is the number 5 outside linebacker in the upcoming NFL draft cycle. I was floored by that. And then he also added to it by talking about it in an article for ESPN Plus. It was him and a few other people who do the draft. I think Jordan Reed, Matt Miller, guys who do the draft for ESPN had their thoughts on this. But then when he was asked late in this article, essentially, what have you been seeing on tape this week? Well, here's what he had to say about the man, the myth, the legend, Jack Kelly. It says this, quote, BYU outside linebacker Jack Kelly was relatively unknown in August, but he's quickly rising as I have him fifth at the position after 3 weeks. He added his second sack of the season Saturday against Wyoming, and you can see the high-end closing speed on tape. At 6'2", 240 pounds, Kelly flies all over the field and can also play off the ball, unquote. I don't think he said anything that is out of the realm of possibility or truth about Jack Kelly. The simple fact of the matter is this has become, in 3 weeks, as Mel Kiper notes, that Jack Kelly is BYU's best NFL draft prospect. He's better than Jakob Robinson, Tyler Batty, Connor Pay, Caleb Etienne, any of those guys you believe are NFL caliber guys. And I believe the four I just mentioned at minimum, I mentioned five, I believe all those guys have NFL futures in front of them. The simple fact of the matter is Jack Kelly has a height, speed, weight ratio that is unmatched. I know that there was some question, okay, what did he do at Weber State? Will it translate over to the Power 4 level? Any of you who watched that SMU game like I did saw him close on a guy that I believe is probably the fastest quarterback BYU has seen to date in Kevin Jennings and closed on him like it was nothing. Jack Kelly has got incredible athletic traits, and he is putting them on full display this season. He absolutely fits the role of an outside linebacker. Could he play the weak side or Sam Backer in a 4-3 alignment? Sure. But I think more importantly, that outside linebacker where he can play to his strengths, and those are getting after the quarterback, playing the run, extremely physical when it comes to playing on the edge. Those obviously translate over to the NFL level. I love to see that Jack Kelly's getting this love from Mel Kiper because it's well-deserved. He has shown everything. I mean, everything that you would have expected coming out of Weber State and transferring to BYU. Jay Hill was on Coordinator's Corner on Monday and was talking about the fact that Jack has shown everything that he showed on the tape at Weber State, and he's doing it now for the BYU football program. And I, for one, had some question. Okay, Jack was essentially a Kyle Van Noy-like player at Weber State. Could he become that at BYU? While he may not have had the same direct impact on winning games, because we all saw Kyle Van Noy single-handedly win a couple of games, I think that San Diego State game, I think of the Ole Miss game. The impact that Kyle Van Noy had during his time as a BYU Cougar was absolutely remarkable. But you cannot, and Jay Hill mentioned it, he said, making a comparison between Jack and Kyle Van Noy is not very fair overall, but it's true. That's the type of player that Jack Kelly has in him and what he is showing. It would be awesome to see him go out there and single-handedly win a game by recovering fumbles and strip sacks and all that type of stuff that Kyle Van Noy did in his career. But the nice part is, it felt like at times Kyle Van Noy did that in spite of his players, in spite of the players around him, whereas Jack Kelly has got a very, very strong defensive core around him. I just talked about a guy like Harrison Taggart who's holding on the middle of this BYU defense at middle linebacker. That allows Jack Kelly to freelance a little bit because he understands that Harrison is going to be there to clean up a lot of the mess on the inside and the interior in the run game. Jack is a seminal talent. We are lucky to be watching him do his thing for BYU. And considering that he's fifth right now on Mel Kiper's board here, you may be seeing him leave for the NFL sooner than you would have anticipated. Now, that obviously could change in an instant. We all know that, but it's awesome. I mean, it's absolutely remarkable to look at what Jack Kelly is doing because he's really kind of reshaping a whole narrative about BYU's linebackers from a season ago, and it's awesome to see. Guys like Isaiah Glasker were absolutely promising players last year for BYU, but that linebacking core, when Ben Bywater got injured against Kansas, it frankly never recovered from that. The nice part is this year, BYU's got at least 3, and I think as many as 6 guys who have proven to be capable contributors who are going to be playing big roles for BYU's hopes in the Big 12 this year, and it's none bigger than Jack Kelly. There are very few people on this roster. The only person I think that might match him in terms of athleticism, and I mean might is the operative word there because I don't see it, is Isaiah Glasker. Isaiah Glasker should be popping up on NFL draft boards, in my opinion, as well. 6'5", 240 pounds, and moves extremely well for that size. I wouldn't be surprised to see him start popping up in some NFL draft conversations before too long. But the nice part is Jack Kelly has taken that torch, and he's carrying it forward here. I hope that BYU ends up with a very healthy draft class this upcoming draft. I also worry that because of the age of some of these guys, our good friend Connor Pay, Tyler Batty, they're going to be pushing 25, 26 years old. And in many NFL circles, that's just too old to draft guys with. Does it preclude them from absolutely being drafted? No, because we have seen guys get drafted at that age. But it's easier for teams to pass on guys that are a little bit older. That's not the case here with Jack Kelly. He was a kid who graduated from Kearns High School in the height of the pandemic back in 2020. It's now 2024, so he is, 21, 22 years old at this point? He is right in the prime of what most NFL teams will look at and say, okay, yeah, that's absolutely a guy we need to have. And I'm just looking at this, number 5 in those outside linebacker rankings, that puts him in middle round territory. We're talking rounds 3 and 4 right now. How much higher could he climb? Well, it's anybody's guess, because if he starts to have more of an impact than he already has had, and I'm telling you, I've been very impressed with his impact already for the BYU football program, but as he continues to kind of just build on that and start to show more of that closing speed, playmaking ability, if you can get after the quarterback, strip that ball out and the like, NFL teams are going to start watching more and more tape of this young man, and I think they're really going to start falling more and more in love with him. He's got an incredible body type. He's absolutely got those thick legs that you want, that are just like tree trunks, that when they root against the run, they just kind of stand in the ground, and you're hard to move him out of his spots. He's got, like I said, the closing speed that's absolutely elite to get after opposing quarterbacks. It's no wonder, in my opinion, that Jack Kelly is what I believe BYU's top NFL draft pick. There's not another BYU Cougar in those top 10. And he goes literally from quarterbacks all the way to place kickers and punters. And he lists top 10 guys. Now, the specialists, there's like 4 or 5, but you get the point. There's no other BYU Cougars in the top 10 right now. And Jack Kelly is right in the middle. He's number 5 and amongst a number of other Power 4 level prospects. It's awesome to see the bet he made on himself by transferring to BYU, show what he could do at the Power 4 level. It's absolutely already paid off, and my hat goes off figuratively and also just literally to Jack Kelly and what he is showing for BYU right now. All right, we'll finish up today's show with a question I've been sent about 4 or 5 times over the past 2 or 3 weeks. I'm going to address it on air and hopefully answer it once and for all. And it involves Gerry Bohannon and his potential role with the BYU football program if it isn't as BYU starting quarterback. And we'll delve into that next, right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Now, FanDuel, we talk about all the time. You heard us talk a lot about the options they have, and very easy to use app. You can bet on anything under the sun when it comes to your sports betting needs: college football, NFL, NBA. Tiddlywinks, it feels like, are all available from our friends at FanDuel. They are America's #1 sportsbook for a reason, but they've got a really unique offer that is, you only have it through the end of this week. And what it is now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and of course, you can cancel at any time. I can speak to the YouTube TV element. It's been my TV provider for years now. It's an incredible product, and if you were looking for a way to watch your team, whatever team it is in the NFL, via NFL Sunday Ticket, you could do a lot better than get this offer. So once again, a 3-week free trial with a $5 bet, and it's only available through September 22nd. Take advantage today. Visit FanDuel.com to get that offer and download America's #1 sportsbook today. That's FanDuel.com. And of course, all of our support from FanDuel is all courtesy of them being America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first view or listen of the day. If you'd like to get more deep inside intel on the BYU football program, join us on the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. The best part is we're seeing an upswing in a number of people subscribing. The best part is it gets you updates coming to you directly in the form of a text message. You don't have to go to a message board. You don't have to go to a website to log in to get the inside intel that you crave. It's coming to you in the form of a text message, and you guys get to have one-on-one conversations with myself via text as well. So if you want to be a part of it, the link is in the show notes below. Whether you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, click it. 14-day free trial to see if it's the right option for you, and just $5 a month afterwards. I think it's an absolute swinging deal, and hope you guys will be joining us on Locked On Cougars, our insider group. All right. Before we go on today's show, I have had this question posed to me in multiple ways, whether it's been via email, DMs on social media, via our Locked On Cougars insider group we just talked about. Jake, and essentially I'll just sum it up by saying this. Jake, why can't BYU, with the issues they're having at running back, move Gerry Bohannon to running back? Now, he is reportedly one of the fastest players on BYU's roster. There are people who tell you he's the fastest running back on the roster and shows extreme ability to run the football. I think all of us saw that on full display in 2021 when he carved up BYU down there in Waco with his legs. He has shown very, very good prowess as a runner. The question is, can you move him over to running back, and how would he thrive in that role? Well, there is precedent for it happening. Now, some of you know the name Jaquindon Jackson. I'm going to invoke the name of the hated University of Utah, the Utes. Jaquindon Jackson was a high-level quarterback prospect who came to Utah, and when they had issues with injuries to the running back position, they moved Jaquindon over to play running back, and he took the position absolutely phenomenally well, and now is playing for the Arkansas Razorbacks and looks like he could be on his way to the NFL. Could Gerry Bohannon make a similar type transition? I'm not saying it's impossible, but this late in his career, and especially with the shoulder injury that he has suffered that required literally over a year of rehab to get him back to where he could participate and practice and compete for the starting job for BYU at quarterback, does he really want to put that all at risk by taking the blows, the hits, the body, the amount of damage you sustain as a running back for BYU? I don't see that happening. And also the fact is he only has really 9 games left in his collegiate career, maybe 10 if BYU makes that bowl game, which I'm expecting at this point. But I look at it in the mold of, okay, I get why you would consider it because you need bodies there at running back. Why not use him? And as some of you have pointed out, why not use him more in a Taysom Hill role where he's in a specialty role? You come in on goal line packages, you run read options, you become that running threat, and you also have the ability, as we've seen with his arm, he showed a very, very nice touch with his passes he threw against Wyoming. You make him a dual threat specialty package player. Make him the Tim Tebow to Jake Retzlaff's Chris Leak, to use that Florida from the 2006 and 07 era example. Is it going to work out that way? Well, I don't know, because at this point we have not seen it deployed in the BYU offense. Could it be in the playbook? Yes. Maybe they're just holding on to it for the moment. They say, you know what, Gerry, we'll get you in there. We're going to run Wildcat with you. I can't say that's not in the playbook, but I also think that if BYU is going to deploy it, you're going to see it sooner rather than later. There is no reason to hold much back at this point. It's Big 12 play. Teams are getting a very good feel for what BYU tries to run at this point, having 3 games of tape on them and already having previous 4 games on Jake Retzlaff and the like. Well, can you switch things up here? And can you make it essentially a much more, I'm trying to say, an indefensible offense for BYU by having Gerry Bohannon play more of a specialty role? So, yeah. I get the thought process of, hey, why couldn't Gerry become a running back for BYU? I get that thought. I just don't see him becoming a full-time running back. Could he be that quote-unquote gadget player, though? Yeah, I absolutely could see that happening if I'm a BYU fan, because I think that would actually work really well. I honestly do. Now, the other thing is if you think that teammates are out on Jake Retzlaff, all you got to do is go and listen to what Parker Kingston had to say about Jake Retzlaff. He said, we're riding with him. He's our guy. And he talked about the kerfuffle or the supposed disagreement between Darius Lassiter and Jake Retzlaff in the Wyoming game. He said it's nothing. It's been kind of projected on to those players by the outside narrative. But I think the bigger thing is Gerry is a guy that the players at BYU respect. He wouldn't be named a co-captain or an associate captain for BYU if he had come in and big timed a lot of these guys. He has been a consummate teammate since arriving at BYU. Can he play a bigger role for BYU in this offense? Yes, I believe he can. But the thought of him becoming, like I said, the next Jaquindon Jackson and making an incredible transition from quarterback to star running back might be a little too far-fetched, I think, to really play out that way. All right, there you go. That's what I got for you guys on this Tuesday edition of the podcast. We will have Connor Pay on the podcast tomorrow, coming up later in the week. Tim Fitzgerald from 24/7 Sports and GoPowerCat.com. He'll break down the Kansas State Jayhawks. Wow, that was a brutal flub on my part. The Kansas State Wildcats. There we go. We got that right. He'll be with us later in the week as well. So we got a full week ahead getting you ready for BYU and Kansas State. Throwing it back to 1996 with those throwback uniforms BYU will don under the lights at LaVell Edwards Stadium. But looking forward to all of it. And obviously a big thank you to all of you, as always, for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you who are everydayers with us as well. And of course, until tomorrow, this has been the Locked On Cougars podcast.